Hello, friends. Welcome back to Miss G's class. Just like I mentioned previously, every day we are going to go over a new sight word. But before we do that, let's go back and review our last new sight word. So our last new sight word was the word R. Echo Miss G. Miss G's going to say it first, and you echo. Ready? A-R-E-R. One more time. A-R-E-R. Very good. That was our last new sight word. Okay, we have a new sight word today, and it is as. A-S, as. This time, echo Miss G. A-S, as. This word might be a little more tricky to come up with a sentence, so I'm going to give you a moment to think of a sentence that uses this word as. If you can't think of one, that's okay. But if you can, go ahead and yell it out. That's completely fine. I know in class I usually ask you to raise a quiet hand, but since we're doing this a little differently, you can go ahead and call it out. Okay? So as. Let's Miss G go over what she wrote as an example for the word as, okay? So, looking at our sentence, they're kind of long, but that's okay. I wrote, Skyla did it as quickly as she could. Now, I underlined one of my tricky words, one of my sight words, as, but there was another one that I missed. I wonder if you guys see it. Ding, ding, ding. I actually wrote it twice. Skyla did it as quickly as she could. Okay? This is a sentence using the word as. Now, let's try a different one. Isaac will finish as soon as he can. Again, I have as here and I have as here, right? Usually, when people use the word as in a sentence, we kind of end up using it twice a lot of times, right? As soon as quickly as fast as. It's just a word that we end up using more than once commonly, okay? So we have A-R-E, R, and A-S as, our two new words. Super exciting. So now let's go on back to our story. And when we think of our story, I want you thinking about, why did the author want to write this book? Our story again is when I was young in the mountains, and you guys remember we like to read stories over and over again so we can learn more and more from it. Sometimes reading a story once doesn't give you all the information you need. You have to go back and look at the illustrations a little bit more, the pictures. You have to go back and listen to the words again. You have to go back and really look closely at faces and illustrations and the colors to really get a sense of what this story is about. So the question we're answering today is, why did Cynthia Rylant write this story? You can think of an answer now. I'll give you a moment. And while you're thinking of it, think of, with your answer, something from the story, right? So if you're saying, she wrote it because life was good. Why do you say that? What in the story made you think that? So I need evidence from the story to support your answer. That means if you say, I think Cynthia thought it was a good life. Why? Why do you think that? Because in the story she said it, in the words. Ding, ding, ding. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear evidence from the story, okay? So that's what's going through her head. Why did she write this? You might have an answer, but let's read through our story to make sure. Now, as we do that, I want you to think about, would you like to grow up like she did? How do you think she felt growing up in this world, in this way? Okay? So, thinking about how she grew up and how does she feel growing up? Really think about that because that's going to help us answer our question of why she wrote this book. Okay? So, Miss G is going to go through the book again. Make sure you're listening to the words and trying your best to look at the illustrations, okay? And what's this called? Front cover. What's that called? Back cover. What's this nice part little called? Spine. Good. And what's this part of the story called? The title page. Good. When I was young and in the mountains, grandfather came home in the evening, covered with the black dust of a coal mine. Only his lips were clean, and he used them to kiss the top of my head. So remember, as I read, we're trying to answer why would she write this story, and how did she feel when she was young in the mountains, okay? When I was young in the mountains, grandmother spread the table with hot cornbread, pinto beans, and fried okra. Okay, let's check that out. Let's check out that illustration. Really look close. Later, in the middle of the night, she walked through the grass with me to the Johnny house, and I held my hand in the dark. I promised never to eat more than one serving of okra again. When I was young and in the mountains, we walked across the cow pasture and through the woods, carrying our towels. The swimming hole was dark and muddy, and we sometimes saw snakes, but we jumped in anyway. You can see, look at that face, huh? Jumping in, no fear. On our way home, we stopped at Mr. Crawford's for a mound of white butter. And Mr. Crawford and Mrs. Crawford looked alike and always smelled of sweet milk. So look really close at the illustration. Look at their faces. Thinking about why would she write this story? When I was young and in the mountains, we pumped pails of water from the well at the bottom of the hill and heated the water to fill round tin tubs for our baths. Afterward, we stood in front of the old black stove, shivering and giggling with grandmother heated cocoa on top. Check out their faces again. When I was young and in the mountains, we went to church in the schoolhouse on Sundays and sometimes walked with the congregation through the cow pasture to the dark swimming hole for baptisms. Look at that. My cousin Peter was laid back into the water and a white shirt stuck to him, and my grandmother cried. Now, we had discussed before what this meant, and we'd said that even though in the words they said grandmother was crying, sometimes you can cry when you're happy, and you can see in all their faces that they're smiling. When I was young and in the mountains, we listened to frogs sing at dusk, and awoke to cowbells outside our windows. Sometimes a black snake came in the yard, and my grandmother would threaten it with a hoe. Right? Now this is a little awkward, but let's check it out. There you see Grandma fighting it with the hoe, right? If it did not leave, she used the hoe to kill it. 4 of us once draped a very long snake, dead of course, across the necks for a photograph, right? And that's because the grandma had to kill it because it was dangerous. When I was young and in the mountains, we sat on a porch swing every evening, and my grandfather sharpened my pencils with his pocket knife. Grandmother sometimes shelled beans and sometimes braided my hair. The dogs lay around us, and the stars sparkled in the sky. A Bob White whistled in the forest. Bob, Bob, Bob White. That was some sort of bird back in that time. And again, let's look at those pictures. Let's look at those faces. When I was young and in the mountains, I never wanted to go to the ocean. I never wanted to go to the desert. I never wanted to go anywhere else in the world. For I was in the mountains, and that was always enough. The end. So thinking about that word, enough. What does Cynthia Rylant mean when she says it was always enough? What do we think that means? Really think about it. Look at her. Look at the way her face is. Right? Look at that face. What does that mean, enough? Well, hopefully you're trying to answer that question. Enough means that you are content. Now, what does content mean, Miss G? That's kind of a big word. Content means you're not greedy. You're happy with what you have. That's what content means. Can you echo, Miss G? Content. It means you're happy with what you have and you're not greedy, right? So we would use that word for this, for Cynthia Rylant, content, right? So thinking about that, really thinking about it, right? She says she was content. She said you saw all the pictures, right? We are going to look back at these pictures and start thinking about what did the author use in the illustrations to help us figure out how she felt about growing up in the mountains, okay? So let's even look at that front cover. How's her face? Look at her face. Is she frowning? Is she upset? What about her brother? Are they frowning? No. Their mouth is upturned. They're pretty happy. Let's see another page, right? What about that page at the very end when she says she's content? Let's look a little closer. Does she look like she's frowning and upset? No. Does she look angry? No. She looks happy. So let's keep thinking about that, right? Let's look back at a different page. Even when she was picking up groceries, look at her face. So what does that make you think? What is the author, Cynthia, telling us through words and illustrations? So what is she telling us about growing up in the mountains? If you look at the pictures, think about it. Keep it in your head. Now tell, if you can, someone you're with about the answer. How does Cynthia feel, right? And now, Miss G is going to try. So I think Cynthia felt happy growing up in the mountains. Well, Miss G, how you know that? What will make you say that? Well, I'm going to use evidence from my story. I know that she was happy because in all the pages she was always smiling. So I think she was happy growing up in the mountains, right? Now, she's happy growing up in the mountains. And I know this because of her face, because of the illustrations. So, why do you think she wrote this story? Hmm. How does she feel growing up in the mountains? Miss G asked that in the beginning. She felt happy growing up in the mountains, and she wrote this story. Why? You guys are probably giving me great answers. These are one of the answers you can give. She probably wrote this story because she wanted you to know how happy she was growing up in the mountains. She wants you to know how her life was when in the past when she was a kid. So let me talk to you guys. Do you love where you grew up? We should all basically be living in New York, right? So what do you love about growing up in New York? I love that I can take the train anywhere I want. That all I have to do is do a little walk. I take a train and I can be anywhere in the city I want to be. I don't have to drive. I don't have to ask someone to help me. Since Miss G's an adult, I can go anywhere, right? Miss G loves that. Now, you tell me what you think, okay? So now we know, why did Cynthia Riley write this story, right? She wrote it because she wanted you to know about her life and how happy she was in the mountains, how content she was. Now that we've done that, let's go back to our evidence organizer. What does that mean? Let's start thinking about what she did when she was growing up and what we do now growing up, right? So we read the whole story and we can fill this out now. Thinking about that. So let's go back to that, to our organizer, right? So we had a swimming hole and a swimming pool. Swimming hole was in Cynthia Ryland's time. Swimming pool is in our time. Now, in the book, she says water from a pump. And we had shown a picture before of what that meant. Just to jog your memory, this is what it is. Now, we don't have to get water from a pump. Where do we get our water from at home? Ding, ding, ding. From a sink. We have a sink for our water. Now, in that part, she was filling up a tin tub to take a bath. So this right here is where they were going to take a bath, right here, in this tin tub. Do you guys take a tin tub bath? No, probably not. I know some people might, but for the most part, we have something else now. And what do we call that? A bathtub. We have a bathtub now. Right? So, this is one way to see it. Writing it down on either side. And now, let's think about seeing it a different way. Right? Let's check it out in this. So, when I was young in the mountains, we had a swimming hole. That's where they were. Today, we have a swimming pool. Ooh. Next, water from a pump. That's where she got water from. Today, we have water from a sink. Lastly, they took a bath in a tin tub, right? But do we do that? No. Today we have a bathtub. Now, as we continue on, we are going to fill up the rest of this organizer. And we are going to write about what Cynthia did in her past and what we do now. Won't be today, it will be next week. But I want you to start remembering and thinking, oh, in Cynthia's time, she used a swimming hole. Today, we have a swimming pool. Okay? And last but not least, I hope you already did it. But if you haven't, it's okay. So remember, I wanted something you did yesterday, right? In your past. I want you to write about it, and I want you to draw a picture about it. Now, what I was thinking is that I want you, if you don't have this foundation paper, right? You can always write it on regular paper. So Miss G will show you now what that looks like. And this will go for any time we are writing anything, okay? So you don't have the foundation paper, that's okay. What you could do is make the lines yourself, right? So you have a blank piece of paper, you make some lines. Miss G is going to use her note card as a way to make the line straight. Maybe you can ask an adult to help you. Maybe you can ask older sibling to help you, but just make a few lines, right? Let's make 3 lines so it's easier, right? So what I did yesterday, we said, Miss G said she yesterday saw a movie with her friend, right? So I'll just write on the top line. I could still make a little line here if I'm counting my words, right? I, remember, put a finger, space, saw, finger, a movie. I have to bring it down because I have no more space. With my friend. And you always end sentences with a period. And now you have all this space on top, right? Because I wrote this in the middle or at the bottom, this might be better. And I have all this space on top to draw me and my friend watching a movie together. Okay? So don't tell me, Miss G, I don't have the paper. I can't write it. Yeah, you can. When there's a will, there's a way, friends. And there you go. You try your best. If the lines don't come out this straight, it's okay. If your picture doesn't look this way, it's okay. If your words aren't perfect, it's okay. We are trying our best. We are getting through this. And this was our second day. I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. And I look forward for a lesson tomorrow. Okay, bye-bye.